G'day, it's Greg Newson, Naturopath, Herbalist and Nutritionist from the Vitality and Wellness Centre, and welcome to today's podcast in which we're going to look into the stomach. We're going to look at what signs and symptoms can indicate that our stomach is not functioning to its optimal ability and what long-term effects that can have on our health and vitality. We'll look at what herbs, nutrients, diet, lifestyle factors we can implement to improve the function of our stomach. And today's podcast is brought to us by Naturovital, supplements with absolute purity. No added chemicals or excipients that bind tablet ingredients together, make manufacturing cheaper, fill empty spaces in capsules, or increase the volumes in powder. All herbal blends are alcohol-free and all supplements contain no synthetic or semi-synthetic colorings, flavors or sweeteners, just pure active ingredients. So you can feel confident and comfortable in knowing that your supplements are as close to nature as possible. Check them out today. Well, the stomach, what does it do? Well, it does a fair bit actually, and it's one of the most important digestive organs in the body because it's at the beginning of the whole process. If the stomach function is not right, that will affect every single digestive organ downstream, which means that they won't absorb the nutrients from the food effectively, which then means that every single cell in our body will suffer. They'll suffer from malabsorption, so they might need to get XYZ nutrients and they don't because it's not being absorbed through the digestive tract. That then can lead to abnormal cell function, and abnormal cell function can manifest in multiple different ways. It can be cancerous, it can be immunological, so the immune system turns on the body and it creates an autoimmune disease. It can affect the cardiovascular system, the vision, the brain, any part of the body, the skeletal system. The hairs on your head can all be affected by the inability of your stomach to break the food down properly. Okay, so how does it do this? The stomach receives a stimulus from the chewing action and the production of saliva in the mouth, which tells the stomach to start secreting gastric juices, and it does that by increasing the production of pepsinogen that breaks down proteins, gastric lipase that break down fat, and hydrochloric acid that denatures or breaks the bonds down within our food, which makes it easier to assimilate the nutrients from. So this function is akin to an old building that needs to be wrecked, and you've got a big crane with a big wrecking ball, and the wrecking ball hits that big solid wall and breaks it down to big chunks of brick and concrete. Well, that's what the stomach acid does to the food. And then those big chunks of brick and concrete then pass into the small intestines where the digestive enzymes break them down to grains of sand and they're absorbed into the bloodstream and utilised by the body. But if that wall passes in larger chunks or as a solid wall from the stomach into the small intestine and the digestive enzymes cannot break that food down effectively, and then that passes unfermented through the digestive tract and out into the toilet bowl, which means that we suffer from malabsorption. So what are some of the common signs and symptoms that indicate that the stomach is not functioning to its optimal levels? Well, the first one's indigestion, and that occurs when the stomach fails to effectively break down the food. Now, that can be due to insufficient stomach acid or even digestive enzymes or delayed emptying from the stomach, and then that will lead to abdominal or stomach discomfort, bloating, gas, or belching or burping. What occurs when the stomach function slows down and there's not enough gastric fire or gastric juices in the stomach to really attack the food and break it down is that it ferments. So think of it this way: get a piece of chicken and throw it into a Ziploc bag, raw chicken, throw it into a Ziploc bag, chuck it out in the sun, leave it there for about 5 or 6 hours, and then come back and have a look at it. And that bag will have expanded because of all the fermentation that's going on with the bacteria, and that produces a lot of gases. And the same thing happens in the stomach. So then that will cause the gas to push upwards, which will be consistent or constant burping. People just burp for no reason, or they eat food and they just burp and burp and burp. Or it's going to push down the other end, and you're going to play a very loud and long sound on your trumpet, so in the form of flatulence. So We don't want the food to ferment in the stomach, because that means all of the digestive organs downstream can't do their job properly, which then leads to malabsorption of every single cell. The buildup of gas and pressure in the stomach can also cause pain, but it can also cause nausea and, in severe cases, vomiting. Now, this fermentation that goes on can actually irritate the lining of the stomach, which the stomach goes, oh, I don't need this irritant here, bring it back up. Another common sign of poor stomach function is actually lack of appetite, which people might think, oh, that's really good. But what can occur is that when the stomach doesn't process the food properly, it can send a signal to the brain to reduce the appetite, and it does that as a protective measure to avoid the discomfort that can occur with not digesting the food properly, i.e. indigestion. Another condition that affects stomach function is delayed gastric emptying, also known as gastroparesis. Now, that can be caused by a few conditions. One of them is diabetes, as the high blood sugar levels can damage the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve is the nerve that activates or innervates or controls the digestive system, including the emptying of the stomach. They can be viral infections that can cause it, and that's commonly known as post-viral gastroparesis. Surgery that has involved the stomach or the damage to the vagus nerve can lead to the delayed emptying. So can certain medications such as opioids, some antidepressants, anticholinergics, and certain diabetes medication, but they need to be taken in higher doses. Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis can also contribute to that, as can scleroderma. But in most cases, it's caused by an idiopathic cause, which means that it's unknown. When it's unknown, meaning that medicine has no real idea what's going on, it's a great indicator that the stomach function is weak. So you got to imagine the food goes into the stomach. It's like a bit of a washing machine down there. Everything gurgles around, and sides compress in, and it moves it from the top of the stomach down to the bottom of the stomach. And then when it's down there, there's a signal sent to the sphincter valve that joins the stomach to the small intestine. Open up, I've got stuff coming through. But if the stomach is tired and it's weak and it's, I can't be bothered getting out of bed today sort of feeling, it's not going to push everything around. It's not going to break it down. It's not going to digest it. It's not going to move it along. So it just sits there. Okay? So that's why we need to improve the function of the stomach, which I'll come to at a little later on. But when we have this delayed gastric emptying, that then can lead to other complications. And some of them is that people don't feel like eating. They eat a small amount of food and they get full because the stuff hasn't moved down through the stomach. Then that can cause a reduced desire to eat because people feel full and they only eat a very small amount of food, or they skip meals altogether. That can then lead to unintentional weight loss, which can then also lead to malabsorption and breaking down of cellular processes within the body because of the nutritional deficiencies. One common condition that most people have heard of that's related to the stomach is reflux, or heartburn, GERD, or GORD, depending how you like to pronounce it. And that is when the gastric juices come up through the esophageal sphincter, which is the sphincter that joins the esophagus to the stomach, and push back up and burn the esophagus, which can go all the way up the throat into the mouth. The causes of reflux are varied, and it could be because the sphincter valve over the years has become weak. It can be caused by the fermentation process, where there's a buildup of gases, and that pushes through the sphincter valve and takes the stomach acid with it. And long-term reflux can really damage the esophagus. So what it will do is that, it's acid. You think it's hydrochloric acid. I'm not suggesting that anyone does this, but if anyone has incidentally or accidentally spilt some hydrochloric acid, some pool acid on their skin, they will feel it burning and they want to wash it off very quickly. Well, the same thing happens to the esophagus, and over a period of time, those cells become damaged quite considerably, and they mutate and they change and they become a condition called Barrett's syndrome. Now, Barrett's syndrome is precancerous, basically, which means that the next stage of the cells is esophageal cancer. So this is not a condition that needs to be taken lightly. Reflux is a quite serious condition, because if you've got esophageal cancer, it's very hard to eat. So there's a tube that goes down to feed you, or, because of the inflammation, or there's a hole there, or there's a big lump that they can't get rid of. And you can't really keep on dissecting or removing the esophagus because there's only so much and they don't yet have a fake esophagus that you can implant. So what can cause reflux? I'll quickly touch on that. Now, it can be caused by a bacteria called Helicobacter pylori, H. pylori. Now, what happens is that one of the roles of the stomach acid that I may not have mentioned is that it destroys pathogens as they enter the body through the mouth. So the very acidic pH, which is around 1.5 of the hydrochloric acid, will burn and destroy bacteria as they enter the stomach. So some people, for example, all may go out for dinner, 3 people may go out for dinner and they all go to the same restaurant and they have exactly the same food. 2 of them get violently ill. They get loud bowel, deli belly, vomiting, diarrhea, and the other person, nothing. Well, the other person's stomach has protected them, has destroyed the bacteria before it can take hold. So Helicobacter pylori is an opportunistic bacteria. It's not designed to live in the stomach, but it can if the pH is low. And when the pH is low, it will take up residency, which can then cause reflux. It can actually damage in the stomach. There's a big thick layer of mucus to prevent the hydrochloric acid and gastric juices from burning holes in the stomach. So H. pylori will erode that mucus, which can then lead to stomach ulcers. Treatment for H. pylori is either some very strong antibiotics for a couple of weeks to a month, or there is some great herbs that will eradicate H. pylori, but I'll talk about them a little bit later on. Another common cause of reflux is actually the foods we eat, because certain foods can trigger an excess production of hydrochloric acid or a relaxation of the sphincter valve, but there's more information about that in the reflux blog. Now, the funny thing about reflux is most people think that it's because, I've got reflux because I've got too much acid. It's actually the other way around. You've got too little acid, so the pH might not be 1.5, it might be 1.75, or it might be 2. Your body might not produce enough hydrochloric acid and gastric juices. As we've mentioned previously in this podcast, as that occurs, food ferments. It pushes the acid back up. So it's actually low acid that will cause the foods to ferment, and hence stuff being pushed back up through the esophageal sphincter. Over time, reflux and poor stomach function can lead to inflammation within the stomach, which can cause a lot of pain. Generally, what I will do with patients when they come to see me, I'll get them to lie down. I'll have a bit of a press around where the rib cages join, up in under there where the stomach is. And if that is tender or painful, or they want to punch my nose, I know that there's inflammation within the stomach. Severe stomach pain can imitate a heart attack. So you get that severe pain in the chest. It can go up to your neck. It can go all around. It can come out the back. You feel like your chest is going to explode. A couple of other conditions that can indicate that the stomach is not functioning properly is some really bad breath. So sometimes I'll get a patient coming in to see me, and they might be 2 or 3 metres away from me, sitting in a chair, and I'm sitting in mine, and I can smell their breath, and I go, okay, you've got stomach problems. And the reason is that the food is fermenting in the stomach. It is just sitting there, and it's giving them some really, really rancid breath. Something else that poor stomach function can do is it can slow down digestion, which can lead to constipation, or it can irritate the digestive tract, the stomach and intestines, etc., and cause diarrhea. Now, we've spoken a lot about the symptoms associated with poor stomach function, but what are the causes? What causes the stomach not to be able to produce enough stomach acid or gastric juices? What slows the movement of the food through the stomach down? What causes the stomach to lose its vitality? Well, there are a few, and one common one that seems to affect a lot of people is stress. And it does this by reducing the blood flow to the stomach and decreases the sensitivity of stomach cells to nervous and hormonal stimulation that would normally increase stomach acid. So basically, when you're stressed out, your stomach is not going to respond to your food and start and stimulate the whole digestive process. Within the stomach, within the digestive system, there's the vagus nerve that I've mentioned previously, and it plays a critical role in stimulating gastric acid secretions. So if that's damaged due to diabetes or surgery, or it's been injured somehow, that can affect the stomach acid and the secretion and the whole digestive function. Something that some people may not want to hear that can affect stomach function, and that is the excessive consumption of alkaline water or supplements. So the regular intake of high pH substances can temporarily neutralise stomach acid function, which can impair digestion and the absorption of nutrients, particularly proteins and minerals that require the pH of the stomach acid pH to be at optimal levels for breakdown and absorption. That doesn't mean alkalised water is bad all the time. It's just you've got to be mindful that if you're having a lot of alkalising substances before food, that is going to dilute your stomach acid. So I generally tell people you can still take that stuff. You've got to take it at least an hour away from eating. Something else that can have a direct impact on our stomach function is sugar. And with that, I'm going to throw in white flour products as well. So these simple sugars can slow gastric emptying, and the delay can reduce the stimulus for the acid production, since the stomach senses that it does not need to work hard to digest the foods and they remain in the stomach longer. This can lead to fermentation, excessive gas buildup, burping, flatulence, bloating, and abdominal pain that we mentioned earlier also. Now, the indirect effect of sugar on the stomach is that it can lead to increase the risk of obesity and insulin resistance and diabetes, which are associated with changes in digestive health, and then that can have, and indirectly that can influence the gastric acid production. It also impacts gastric health by altering the balance of the bacteria in the gut, which leads to dysbiosis, which in turn can inflame the gastric lining and potentially impact the glands responsible for the acid secretion. Now, something that most people will stick their fingers in their ear and not want it to hear, and that is the effects of alcohol. Alcohol can also affect stomach acid production, and it does this by increasing the release of a hormone called gastrin, and the role of gastrin is to promote the stomach acid production. So small to moderate alcohol consumption can actually lead to the overproduction of stomach acid, which can lead to or exacerbate reflux. But chronic long-term heavy drinking can lead to gastritis, which is inflammation of the stomach lining, which will eventually decrease gastric acid production. So the inflammation that is caused by the chronic alcohol consumption can damage the stomach lining, which then will affect the cells that sit within the stomach lining that produce the gastric juices. Aging, it's something we unfortunately can't get away from, and how well we age really depends on how we've looked after our body, how we've nourished it through our younger years. If we haven't looked after ourselves and we're chronically stressed and we drink a lot of alcohol and we've eaten a poor diet, the vitality that would normally go back into our organs, in this case the stomach, is diminished. So that's when I say the energy, it's the chi, it's the vital force, it's the vitality of the stomach. So our lifestyle habits coupled with aging will reduce the robustness of our stomach function. Now that can then lead to a reduced number of parotial cells in the stomach lining. They're responsible for producing stomach acid, and then that can change the way we absorb protein and vitamin B12. And the reduced production of acid can then also lead to an increased risk of foodborne infections. Something else that also contributes to a reduction of stomach acid and vitality within the stomach are certain pharmaceutical medications, and they are actually, ironically, the medications that people are given if they suffer from heartburn or reflux, and that is the proton pump inhibitors, H2 blockers, and antacids, and they are given those medications to reduce the symptoms of reflux without actually treating the underlying cause, but they reduce the symptoms. Unfortunately, the side effects of reducing those symptoms is that they lower stomach acid production, which reduces the absorption of certain vitamins and minerals and leads to their deficiencies. There's more information about that in the reflux podcast, blogs, and video that we've done previously. Okay, so that's all the doom and gloom and all the negativity about poor stomach function and what causes it. But really, what can we do to put that vitality back into the stomach to supercharge the digestive system? Well, if you've taken note of what I've been talking about, alcohol and sugary products generally not so good for stomach acid production. We want to try to change our diet to be more focused on fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and legumes and pulses and beans and cows and chickens and eggs and oysters and prawns and all of those healthy foods from nature. Not grain-fed meats and not farmed fish, but wild-caught fish and grass-fed meats. And these foods then nourish the body with the nutrients that it needs to regenerate and repair and keep us healthy. Mother Nature has also provided some wonderful medicinal herbs and classes of medicinal herbs that play a major role in promoting healthy digestion. So I'll just go into those very quickly. One of the most important group of herbs for stimulating stomach acid production and saliva production are bitter herbs. So when you're chewing a bitter herb, I should say, like dandelion leaf, grab a dandelion leaf and start chewing on that, or gentian, they actually stimulate the saliva, which then tells the stomach to start producing the stomach acids. Aromatic herbs, which are generally your culinary herbs, so your aniseeds, your fennels, your caraway, cinnamon, they all help the stomach to stimulate the production of their gastric juices. So do pungent herbs such as ginger and cayenne pepper and garlic, and they increase the circulation and the heat in the digestive tract, which enhances the production and the function of those gastric enzymes. Now, calmative herbs such as peppermint or chamomile help to relax the muscles within the stomach, and then that helps reduce bloating, gas, and abdominal pain. In addition, these herbs also stimulate the gastric secretions and improve the movement of the food through the stomach. Sour herbs like hibiscus, tamarind, or even good old humble lemon stimulate the saliva and gastric acid production due to their acid nature. So that's a few classes of herbs that are very beneficial for the stomach. So Mother Nature knows. So next time you're having a meal and you go, oh, there's some rocket, throw the rocket in there. That's that pungent sort of herb which can help stimulate digestion. Or, put a bit of lemon juice over your food. That will help stimulate digestion. So what can we do to increase stomach acid secretions? Well, you could take a tablet that contains a substance called betaine hydrochloride, and that is the precursor to hydrochloric acid. But if we do that, we're not actually allowing our stomach to revitalise, to regenerate, to put that energy back into the stomach so it can produce the hydrochloric acid, the pepsinogen, and the gastric lipase by itself. Betaine hydrochloride only increases hydrochloric acid. It does not increase the pepsinogen or the gastric lipase. And you'll have to take it forever and a day because you're not actually regenerating everything. You're just taking a pill, like you're in that pill popping mentality that the pharmaceutical industry has got us into, that take a pill, it'll be right, and I have to take a pill at every meal. And I've got to do that for the rest of my life to keep my stomach acid levels up. Yeah, it's most probably good for the retailer that sells it, but as far as getting people healthy, it's not one that I focus on. I love herbs. They're Mother Nature's healing medicine. They are what regenerates, revitalises and repairs the stomach and the stomach function. I would much prefer to give someone a herbal blend that they have to take for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 months to regenerate and repair rather than taking a supplement for the rest of their life. So what do I do for people that come to see me and they've got poor stomach function? Well, if their stomach function is just part of, they've just got a weak digestive system, a bit of bloating, a bit of burping, gas, and we need to stimulate the function of the stomach and improve digestion, I will always use Naturovital Digestive Support. Now, it contains a therapeutic blend of bitter, aromatic, calmative, and pungent herbs that stimulate stomach and digestive function. In addition, it contains a specific herb for the stomach and digestion called meadowsweet. Now, meadowsweet, I haven't mentioned that. That is a wonderful herb. That's a herb that's specifically for the stomach. It contains salicylic acid, and salicylic acid is anti-inflammatory to the lining of the stomach, which is very beneficial. But it's one of these herbs, it's one of the only herbs that I know of that actually, if the stomach acid is too high, it brings it down. If it's too low, it stimulates to bring it up, thus normalising gastric acid levels. So if someone is suffering from reflux, there's a couple of things that we need to look at. Firstly, I will give them the Naturovital Stomach Support that contains the herbs that will strengthen, tighten, revitalise the sphincter valve, and that is chamomile and golden seal. So if anyone wakes up in the middle of the night time, they've got a bit of reflux, go grab a cup of chamomile tea. It will settle it down. Chamomile is a really great anti-inflammatory for the intestinal tract, and it soothes the cells of the esophagus. And one of its important actions is that it strengthens and tightens and revitalises the sphincter valve, the esophageal sphincter valve that joins the stomach to the esophagus, as does golden seal. And golden seal is what we call a mucous membrane restorative. So it regenerates the mucous membranes, of which any internal cavity, the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the intestines, they are all mucous membranes. In with that, we have a herb called marshmallow that coats, and not the white or the pink ones, and everyone's going, ooh, marshmallow. It coats the esophagus and stomach, so it protects the lining of the stomach and the esophagus and allows it to heal, and it also contains meadowsweet. With that, because of the reflux and the damage that's caused the esophagus and potentially the stomach as well, I will also use the Naturovital intestinal repair that contains the nutrients to regenerate the cells that line those areas. And if there's a lot of pain associated with it, I will also use Naturovital inflammatory support, and I could use that 10 ml 3 to 4 times a day depending on the pain, and reduce it as things improve. If a person is suffering from Helicobacter pylori and they don't want to go down the antibiotic pathway, I will treat them with 2 Naturovital products. One of them is Sacrobiotic, which is the Saccharomyces boulardii probiotic yeast that actually, once it's in the stomach, it crowds out and suffocates the Helicobacter pylori. And the other one is HP Support, which contains herbs that eradicate the Helicobacter bacteria. Some people may need to take those for 4 to 6 weeks to kill it effectively, and that's similar with the antibiotics. I can take them for about a month, and then give it a rest, and then retest after a month, because if there's any eggs that are floating around and they hatch, we don't want the Helicobacter pylori to take hold again. And then after that, I would then go and do the reflux supplements that I've just mentioned to restore and regenerate the stomach function. Something else that I get my patients to do is take a bit of apple cider vinegar, generally the organic apple cider vinegar with the mother or the wort, and I basically get them to put half a teaspoon to a full teaspoon of apple cider vinegar in a cup of water. And then that can help mimic the stomach acid, but it can also help aid digestion because the acetic acid in the vinegar helps to break down protein-rich foods as well. So hopefully that's given you a bit more of an understanding of what the signs and symptoms are that are associated with poor stomach function, and a bit more appreciation of how important the stomach is for our total long-term health. Anyway, until next time, this is Greg. Live life and laugh loud.